Welcome to what I consider the ultimate sandbox game. Now, that's coming from someone who worked on The Sims at Electronic Arts. This game has a little bit of everything for everyone. There's adventure-filled exploration, passionate creativity, intense action, mindless relaxation, and the ultimate chill out and lose time experience. So let's dive into the greatest selling game of all time, and one that owes a lot of its success to YouTube itself, Minecraft. Welcome to our game design discussion of Minecraft. This is, depending on whether you count franchises and pack-in games and all of that, this is arguably the greatest selling game of all time, and with great reason. As we kind of dive into some of the mechanics here, you'll see exactly why. I admittedly got into this party late. I had never really played Minecraft. It didn't jump out to me as something I would enjoy until the COVID lockdown. And then once we got into COVID, it became an experience for my family and I to kind of share time together, even if we were apart from one another. We could log into the realm and still spend time with one another, or just being locked in the house for as many months as we were. It gave us an outlet, creative outlet, and an exploration outlet, and something that we could work together and have that sort of cooperative experience. This is the ultimate game of flow, in my opinion. If you're not familiar with the concept of flow, as a product designer, game designer, or anything, it's an incredibly important concept. It stems from the book Flow of that name by the author Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, but it's an incredible book, and it talks a lot about how humans get into this sort of state of interaction where time is just flying by. You've lost complete track of time. You are in a product, you're hyper productive. It's that sense when you're flying through your email inbox, or you're working in the Adobe Creative Suite and the tasks are just kind of flying through and you're just checking off boxes like crazy. It's those few hours that you can get into where the world sort of fades away and you can hyper focus on what you're doing. But as a game design, Minecraft is the ultimate that. I cannot even begin to fathom the amount of hours I've put into this game where I've sat down wanting to do a quick something. I'm going to go farm some resources, or I'm going to do something for an hour or so that I have. And I'll look back at the clock and it's 3-4 hours later where you just kind of get lost in this. We get wandering in this world and we can completely lose track of time. It's encompassing, and there's so many things you can do that time sort of just fades to the side. Maybe you start a small building and 6 hours later, you realize oh man, I've spent 6 hours building this roller coaster or this tower or whatever it is I've spent this time in. But the time has just kind of flown by. Per the author and that book itself, really when this happens effectively when both the skill level of something and the challenge level are high. When you need a high skill and the challenge is high, those are the conditions that are ripe for this flow state. And Minecraft works with that. Minecraft, we think of it as sometimes as a time passer, but building stuff is challenging. Creating really good builds does require a high level of skill, and the challenge to make it right and make it feel good is also challenging. So you have the mixture to create that flow state. If you're exploring a mine or exploring a cavern, your chance of death can be incredibly high unless you really buff up your character, your avatar. You could have a creeper sneak up on you or whatever and not know necessarily what's coming. That skill and that challenge both remain high, which is where you want to be. If we were to divide that into sort of those quadrants, that's where you kind of want to stay. Minecraft in whole, it's such a successful experience, and it does such a great job of teaching skills and teaching some of these concepts that Sweden has even made it a required part of learning. Minecraft education is a large part of our education now, and even schools in the United States are starting to adopt it more and more to teach children how to unleash that creativity. It's being used as art classes. It's being used in STEM programs to teach like low-level programming and scripting languages. Children are making their own worlds and mods and all of this stuff. And it's a very low barrier to entry for this technology, which is incredibly great for the children learning these sorts of things. As we look into the mechanics a little bit, let's start with reward system and progression tracking. That's kind of a broad category of mechanics. But some of the things that Minecraft does incredibly well here is you have your level system. I mean, as you kill mobs, as you mine, as you smelt ores, all that stuff, you get your little green orbs, and that slowly adds to your experience level, which is kind of interesting in Minecraft. It is a real hockey stick sort of curve. You can go from 0 to 10 incredibly fast, and then 10 to 20 takes a little bit longer, 20 to 30 takes a good chunk. And the interesting thing about the experience level is past 30, as far as gameplay is concerned, there's not a great reason to go past that level 30. If you use the enchanting mechanic and you're enchanting armors and weapons and books and that kind of stuff, the cap at that enchanting is level 30, which is really the max that you would want to go, because after that, going from level 30 to 31 takes as much experience as going from 0 to like 15 or so, I think. And so you're really starting to grind. So it just becomes bragging rights at that point. Getting your character to where you're 100 plus experience level is really just a bragging rights thing. There's not a gameplay mechanic necessarily tied to it. You don't get an increase in abilities. You don't get any buffs or anything like that increase that gameplay. It's strictly a bragging rights leveling system. But prior to that, in that 30, getting those levels is important. You get larger enchantments, more powerful enchantments. You can use it to repair weapons, to combine weapons. All of that uses those level experience points to happen. And so that's where that leveling system becomes important, is things like combining weapons and adding enchantments and putting an enchanted book onto a bow or axe or whatever you want to do requires those levels. Another fun part of the progression is really just how this game ramps from beginner to expert. It's one of the best sort of skill ramps in all of gaming, in my opinion. Anyone can jump in. I mean, I have 5-6-year-olds jump in and start playing Minecraft. You can move around, you can run, jump, you can use your pickaxe to break blocks, you can start placing blocks. The barrier to entry to play this game is incredibly low. Like, anyone can jump in and play it, and that's fantastic about it. But as you start to become a more experienced player, there's a ton of layers to this game that become more enthralling the deeper you go. Once you start to get a better armor set or get some better weapons and tools, you can take on bigger challenges. You can go deeper into that cave or that mine. You can wander farther away from your home base. You can start setting up a hub and spoke system for your base. All of these things add to this experience. And there's a lot of little things that I think really help that sort of ramping. The buffs are a great example. Like, as a beginner player, you don't really care too much about little things like your run speed, your jump height, all of this stuff. It's really just about like, hey, I'm just trying to find the resources I need to survive. I've got to get wood, I've got to get stone, I've got to make tools, I've got to build a shelter. But then as you start to get that stuff, you start to later on, oh, I want to go and take on some of these bigger experiences. Well, I can find these potions in places, and I can increase my strength, and I can move from an iron pickaxe to a diamond pickaxe, and my sword, I can start to add sharpness and some of these other enchantments to my equipment that really start to ramp that game. And you go from that beginner to that expert like relatively fast. And then you start layering on even more and even more. Some of the buffs I love, like the strength, resistances, water breathing, lots of different buffs you can add to your player. I love regeneration. Like, regeneration is a classic buff that works especially well in boss battles. If you're going in and fighting a wither, the ender dragon, Drinking one of those regeneration potions can be a lifesaver, where your life is kind of just regenerating a little bit faster than it would. And using those sort of things kind of takes you from that beginner to expert sort of mode. Some of the buffs, or debuffs, I guess we should say, are incredibly fun and frustrating too. I think the one that frustrates me the most is the mining sickness. Like anytime I'm out exploring and come across an ocean temple and get that mining sickness, I just kind of have to swim around the ocean for a little bit, because you can't, the mining then takes forever, which is a huge part. I mean, it's the namesake of this game. So if you're trying to build a house or explore, having that incredibly slow mining is a brilliant yet frustrating debuff. And I think that's part of its brilliance, is it really does, it's probably the most detrimental that you can have in this game. That potion system in general, you can find some potions here and there through exploring. If you find spawners or explore the deep dark and some of these places, you can find these potions and use them. But the real ramp between beginner and expert comes when you can actually start brewing these potions yourself. You can make a brewing stand, you can get blaze rods. A lot of the things you need for that brewing are end game resources. You have to find a fortress in the Nether to be able to get blaze rods. You then have to construct the fires. All of that sort of adds up. Like you need gas tiers to create some of these. All of the ingredients can be a little bit harder to find, and so it really does make that switch from beginner to expert to be able to craft these potions yourself. But as soon as you can, some of these potions can be incredibly powerful. Like I personally love the slow falling potion, like being able to go down into a mine and drink one of those to like fall down large cliffs and be able to make that exploration a little bit faster without having to worry about fall damage can be incredibly powerful. Some other breakdowns of that ramping include things like world modes. Just in general, you can set up your own world and set it up as a creative world. If you don't want mobs, you don't want anything that you just want to go in and build a house or build a structure or do something fun, you can play in creative mode and completely remove that sort of barrier of action skill if you want to do that. You have peaceful modes where the mobs won't actively attack. You have survival, which is kind of your classic Minecraft. You also have hardcore, where there is no, if you die, that world's gone, which is kind of that true expert, where it really is, I mean, truly that like you must stay alive, and that risk to reward ratio is something you've kind of got to choose. But again, like that ramp works incredibly well. You can play in creative, which is that baseline, or you could play hardcore, and you get to choose where you want that world to be. The tools, weapons, and armor themselves have that sort of skill ramp. You start with wood, you gather some wood, and you can make wood axes and pickaxe and shovel and all these things. And then you use those to create stone, and then you use the stone to gather iron. From there, you can get deeper into the mines and start to gather diamond. And then you really get into the netherite, and you have to find ancient debris and smelt it and mix it with gold to create nether ingots. Like that ramp is really impressive. It's not just a simple, like, oh, I'm just going to choose to use diamond. No, you can't mine diamond without iron. You can't mine iron without a tool, and you have to use stone. You can't use wood. Like you have to progress that slowly. And if you've played before, then getting that ramp is really fast, because you kind of know, okay, first thing I got to do, go find some trees so I can get some basic tools. Then those tools are going to turn into stone tools, and then you're kind of off and running. Once you kind of get the wood, stone, iron flow, then you're kind of off to the races. And then it becomes the diamond and netherite become high level sort of expert ramps. Even the movement and exploration in this game have a crazy ramp to them. Like you start just by walking around, walking, running, jumping is kind of where it starts. And then as you start to get further and further from your base, you start building things like boats, where it's like, hey, I want to take to the water so that I can move around these oceans a little bit faster. And you can also get horses, where you get a lasso, get a horse, you find a quick horse, and you can start traversing the land even faster than your character can. And then you start getting even further into like the potions we mentioned to get running and jumping speed increases. And then you finally get to things like Elytra, and the new announcement is the friendly ghasts, where you can fly around. That Elytra, those friendly ghasts, allow you to fly in the world. So you aren't even bound necessarily by the how fast you can walk on land and water. You're now in the air and completely bypassing the ups and downs and hills and valleys. Finding resources is the same way. You can find these resources naturally as you start to increase your skill, increase the tools you have at your disposal. You can create basic farming where it's like, hey, I'm going to create my own little wheat farm so I can gather this wheat. And then you start to get to redstone and automation. And again, that ramp from like, I'm finding these naturally in a village to, hey, I'm going to set up my own basic farm at my base, to, hey, I don't even need to be at my base. This automation is going to run using redstone in that. I can have a kelp farm. I can take that kelp and dry it into kelp blocks, and you kind of have a perpetual fuel source. You can create lava farms for fuel sources. I like to set up honey and wax farms. There's so much copper. I use copper as sort of my grinding XP material because it's super abundant, especially if you have a pickaxe with something like fortune on it. You get tons of copper. You can smelt it and get a ton of XP. And so that's what I use to sort of ramp my XP. But I like to get my copper to certain oxidation states and make it stay, which requires wax. And wax can be a hard thing to find, so I've gone and created a bee farm so that I can farm that wax and set my copper blocks, which allow them to not oxidize. But overall, the ramping is the best I can think of in games, and really everything. Like, I don't even know a software that does ramping as well as Minecraft does for games. The closest I can think of is probably Adobe in the Creative Suite. Like, within the Creative Suite, you do have a good beginner to expert sort of ramp. You can kind of start with the iPad versions of these softwares. You can do the iPad version of Photoshop and Fresco, especially. Like, I've installed Fresco on my kids' devices so that they can use their Apple pens and the touch screens to kind of do basic watercoloring and digital art and kind of start to learn that. And it's, again, a very low barrier to entry. You start to go from there to like, hey, I'm going to start to learn vector art in Illustrator, and then maybe I'm going to learn page layouts in InDesign, and maybe I'm editing photos in Photoshop. And once you get to that desktop suite of software, then it can really start to ramp. You start to get incredible tools with the AI that's now available in Adobe. That just gets put out even on a further ramp, where they're creating and generating and fixing these sorts of things for you. That's the closest I can think of in a software to getting to some of these things, is figuring that kind of stuff out and finding that ramp in a creative software. Another great part of the progression and sort of that increase in skill in Minecraft is the way that it pays. The move from a one-time fee, I purchased the Minecraft game for $9.99 or whatever it goes for now. They've actually recently said they don't plan on doing a free-to-play model, which is interesting with the direction that most games are going. But you have that one-time fee. You own it for life. It's continuously updated for over a decade now, and that doesn't seem to be stopping. But you can move from that one-time fee to subscriptions. You have the Realm subscription. You have microtransaction models where if you want to buy potentially some mods or some worlds or something like that, like they have the ecosystem for you to do that, which is incredibly interesting. And software and games now aim for that sort of SaaS and games as a service model, the SaaS and gas sort of revenue. The reason they do that for the most part is it looks better if you're going out and trying to fundraise for a game or a product. That annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue, depending on how you want to shift it, is a little more promising, and it's a little easier to predict. It's a little harder to predict overall revenue with one-time purchases. You have to make a lot of assumptions on the trajectory of things, but annual recurring revenue and monthly recurring revenue are significantly easier to project that revenue, get valuation, and go and try to raise venture capitalism. So that's why a lot of the products and games are shifting to this SaaS or gas in games sort of model, which is an interesting way to go. And for Minecraft to slowly get there with realms and microtransactions is starting to get there a little bit more. Minecraft is also full of little Easter eggs and secrets that only players that have been here for a long time kind of start to understand. You have things like the Jeb sheep, where you add a name tag to the sheep and it kind of creates this rainbow sheep. You also have things like the pumpkin Enderman disguise. Like, Enderman can be a pretty scary thing to come across in the Minecraft world. It kind of shows that you've progressed past the basics and you're now finding legit enemies. But you throw a pumpkin, you throw a jack-o'-lantern on your head, and you're invisible to them, which is a kind of interesting little Easter egg. And Minecraft's full of those kinds of little things where the beginner has no idea what's going on, but as you start to play, as you start to experiment with things, if you start to become part of a community where you're talking with other players, you're sort of sharing these secrets. It reminds me of like the old school, like NES and Super Nintendo days where you don't have the internet to go and search where the warp whistle was in Super Mario Brothers 3. You're talking with friends at school and it's like, hey, did you know if you do this on this level, you can find this warp whistle that allows you to jump to World 4? And it kind of reminds me of that. And the community that Minecraft has built around that sort of thing is incredible. I mean, millions of players. It's like we said, it's the greatest selling game of all time. And with that comes this great community of people sharing information. Looking at the next category of game mechanics, let's talk about the exploration a little bit, which this is potentially my favorite part of this game, is the sheer exploration. Just not necessarily like the action or the ramping or anything like that. Just being able to log in and just go. Like I can just start running or start flying or hop in a boat and cruise the oceans, whatever I want to do. This game works on procedurally generated worlds. Every world is different. You get this unique seed number that you can go and explore, and you never know what you're going to find. You legitimately, the next chunk that loads is what it's referred to, is generated as you come into it. You really have no idea what's going to be out there until you start to load these chunks of data and see where it's going. And it creates this unique and fun experience where even if I'm in my realm and I've played hundreds of hours in there, I can create another world really fast and have brand new things to go and see, which is incredibly fun. Or even in that world where I maybe put hundreds of hours and explored to these far reaches, there's always pockets that I haven't explored. And creating maps is a big part of that. I think that's one of my favorite things with these worlds is you create these maps to sort of keep track of where you've been, where you haven't been, where these key areas are, so that you can kind of keep track of like, hey, if I want to get back to that woodland mansion, this is where it is, and know where those are. And that exploration is incredibly fun to me. And they keep it fresh by utilizing these different biomes as opposed to just, hey, it's all just dirt and rocks and mines. They've added more and more biomes over time where you have the cherry blossoms, you have the sort of gray forests now, you have a bunch of different types of caves. You have lush caves, dry caves, you have different complete realms. You have the general overworld, you have the nether, you have the end realm, you have all these different places you can wander within your same world. And they all provide different challenges. And again, they ramp. You start in the overworld, you then start to explore the nether, then maybe you move to the end and battle the ender dragon. Again, that ramping becomes part of that exploration. You explore further as you become more and more experienced. My personal favorite biome is probably the Badlands. I mean, I'm obviously a Utah native, so that Red Rock is sort of my spiritual place. Like, I love traveling down to southern Utah and kind of being amongst that red rock. And so that Badlands biome just always feels a little bit at home. I wish they had more life in that biome like you do in some of the others. Some of the other biomes have better gameplay, but visually, I just will always love that Badlands biome. The way that they sort of gate exploration is fun too, because you sort of get to choose. You can choose, hey, do I explore endlessly and maybe never come back? Do I kind of use that sort of hub and spoke idea where I venture out a little bit and then I return? And the way that they manage that is more or less your inventory. Like, you have an inventory size where if I'm going out for resources, my inventory will fill up at a certain point. And I have to figure out, hey, do I travel back to home base and dump some of this off? Do I create little spoke bases where it's like, hey, I'm going to put some of the iron here, I'm going to put some of the iron over here, or whatever I'm mining. You kind of have to gate your exploration yourself, and you can choose. If you don't care about what you're mining and you're just saying, hey, I'm going out to 50,000 on the map, on the coordinates, just to see what's out here, you can do that. And your inventory won't fill up if you're not gathering resources to fill it up. And if you're fine throwing away resources to make more space, great. You can do whatever you want. You as the player get to decide what and where you want to go. There is no... we've talked about Metroidvania style games before, where it's like, hey, you can't access this area until you get X power up. Minecraft's the opposite. You can go wherever, whenever you want. Obviously, like, you go to the end and you need to be prepared to fight the Ender Dragon, but there's plenty of videos that can show you beating all of these different bosses and areas with minimal things. Like, the speed runs for Minecraft in starting a world to killing the Ender Dragon are a matter of minutes. And so with skill, with that ramping again, you can get there. And it's incredibly fun to see what that inventory does to force you to make decisions. And you have other things, again, going back to the ramping. Once you get to the point where you can create things like shulker boxes, then your inventory expands. You can increase that inventory with in-game items, with the game system. It's not a power-up necessarily that you drink a potion and your inventory becomes larger. No, you've got to go and gather the resources to make these shulker boxes. And you can start combining ores into blocks of ore. And you can start to manage your inventory in different ways once you start to learn those sorts of things. And they also have items that don't stack or have smaller stacks, which can kind of create an interesting conundrum too. Potions, I mean, we talked about them before, but that's one of the things that drives me crazy about potions is they're not stackable. So if I want to go far from my base and maybe take on a big challenge, I don't have the ability to grab 10 regeneration potions. That'll fill up a good chunk of my inventory. I can only take a couple with me. And it makes me wonder if in part of the play testing or whatnot, they kind of found that stacking potions became just incredibly OP or overpowered, where I really could just take a stack of my main potions and do that. It makes me wonder why they wouldn't even do a lot of things only stack to 16, like eggs, snowballs, ender pearls, like those kinds of things only stack to 16. It makes me wonder why potions don't do the same and they're a single, but I can kind of see. I mean, if I had 16 regeneration potions and only filled one slot, it would allow me to really get pretty ramped up. Like I could carry a large chunk of stuff. So I'm guessing the play testing and the balancing, the game balancing comes into play there, which is an incredibly important part of game design. A lot of times we take for granted that sort of balancing and getting in, and as a designer, just playing your game and having play testers come in and play your game and see what some of their strategies are. Do people navigate their way to that and realize, oh, if I stack 16 regeneration potions, that will last me a good chunk of time, and I can really become overpowered at that point. And I have to assume that's what happened here, is part of the play testing, part of the balancing, realize that these have to be single slot items or else things can get incredibly overpowered. Another area of Minecraft mechanics that has to be discussed is socialization and socialization type game mechanics. And the thing that I love about Minecraft is a lot of games will build their socialization mechanics around one or two little areas or types of socialization. Either their socialization is based on leaderboards, or maybe it's a chat forum, or maybe they allow modding or something like that. But Minecraft really comes at it from all angles. The way that socialization game mechanics can be divvied up can kind of be split into three different types of this versus that, really. There's synchronous versus asynchronous socialization. There is competitive versus cooperative socialization gameplay mechanics. And then there's online versus what we would consider like not online, or what's often referred to as like couch co-op or couch comp, couch competitive, where you're not online, you are in the same room with people. And Minecraft handles like all 6 of those. They have asynchronous and synchronous modes of socialization. They have competitive, they have cooperative, they have online, obviously, and then you can also get together, sitting together in the same room necessarily. It's not split screen per se, but you can all have your device and gather together and play in the same area together. So, I mean, taking a look at that, looking at synchronous and asynchronous type socialization features, synchronous Minecraft is obvious. You're in the realms together, you're playing, you're competing against one another, but their asynchronous logic is great as well. You can go and create content. They have this giant marketplace for you to make things and share them with others, where I can go and create something, throw it into the marketplace, and I don't need to be online for someone else to go and do that. I don't need to be online for someone to comment and say, hey, I love what you've done with this world, with this mod, with this whatever. We are asynchronously sharing these files and doing these things that allow us to socialize. And that's what's really great about this part of Minecraft and this socialization is it can happen all over the place. It can happen synchronously where we're here together, or there's always stuff being shared asynchronously. And taking a look at competitive versus cooperative, same thing. Like, you have competitive servers, you have lifesteal servers, you have like the dream server, and tons of YouTube series and other things where people are playing online, they're competing with one another, they are vying for that sort of top spot of who's the best freestyler, or who's the best builder, who's the best competitive player, who's the best parkour Minecraft player. There's tons of different competitive aspects to Minecraft. But there's also cooperative. Like, me and my family live in our realm and we build stuff together. We don't fight against one another necessarily. We may team up together and cooperatively take on a raid or take on one of the bosses, or just build out the village. Like, we've built this incredibly large village where everyone has their own house, and we've started to build these other secondary houses and just kind of fun places for people to live. And that cooperation is a huge part of the socialization in Minecraft. Not only the giant community they've built, but even in-game, sharing resources. I'll go and collect resources for my family so that they can build the house that they want, and I'll kind of be in charge of going and gathering their brick, their wood, their glass, whatever it is they need, and I'll kind of dump it into the village and allow them to use it to build whatever they want. There's also the aspect of playing together online versus being kind of in the same room. I mean, obviously, like, the way you can socialize online is easy in this day and age. Like, Minecraft is not as old as some of these other games. You're built in an online aspect. You can easily connect. I can play with people that are all over the world. And it's incredibly fun to get together with people and jump into a game like Minecraft because of its low barrier to entry. We can get in and build a house together incredibly fast. We don't need a whole lot of discourse to kind of get the idea of what we want to do and get past that barrier to entry to start playing. But those of you that have watched some of my other videos know my love for couch co-op games, necessarily where you are in that same room. Like, I love playing with my family where we're all on our own devices here in our media room, and we're talking to each other. Hey, can someone bring me some brick? Hey, I'm stuck down in this mine. Can someone come bring me some torches? Or maybe I run out of food or something. And there's that competitive aspect where we don't have to use the in-game chat, or we don't have to have on headsets or be hooked to Discord or anything like that. We can just kind of walk around and be talking to each other in the same room. And I think there's something incredibly fun to those couch experiences, specifically couch co-op. And I have a soft spot in my heart for those games pretty much all the time. And I mean, the social aspect of Minecraft itself, it's probably, if you're choosing a game that gets either streamed or content made for it on platforms like YouTube and Twitch, Minecraft is probably towards the top of the list. YouTube especially. I mean, you have major content creators that have built their entire realm or empire, I guess you could say, on Minecraft content. And that alone is a huge part of this socialization. Just sharing those videos with one another like I'm doing here is a big part of that socialization in this game. Speaking of that sharing and content creation, I love games that allow that open creation of content for them. It kind of goes back to the old shareware games of old, the Doom, Half-Life, like the community that was built around Doom and Doom 2 and WAD files and creating these maps for people to go and play. And back then it wasn't as easy as it was. They didn't have marketplaces built in the game. You would upload these WAD files to an FTP server and get in chat rooms and see if you could find people to hop on and play them and give you feedback. And it was an iterative process. It's kind of like the core of game design is in that content creation, that original content creation in the modding community. I mean, I dove into like Duke Nukem levels pretty heavily. That was one of my first forays into 3D game design, was building Duke Nukem levels. And then I got into modifying Neverwinter Nights and building BioWare's Aurora tool set for Neverwinter Nights, making mods in that. And I loved building that kind of stuff when I was younger. And that was kind of where I got my game design start, was building those mods. And I know countless other designers that's been the case. And that socialization of modding communities is another one of the reasons I love games like Minecraft or Roblox or that, where they openly foster people to create content and share it with others. It's an incredible part of game design and of sharing those resources and sharing that knowledge. Storytelling and narrative is another part of game designs as we kind of break down the mechanics that Minecraft uses. And sometimes when you think about Minecraft, you think, well, there's no story, there is no narrative. This isn't a narrative-driven game. This is a sandbox game, and that's true. Like there isn't necessarily a narrative written for you to play out. There's not a story mode, at least in base game Minecraft. We'll talk about that in a second, but you create your own story. Like, you get to write your own narrative in these sandbox games, and it's incredibly powerful to be able to do that. When you have games like The Sims or Minecraft that are these sandbox games where you are writing your own narrative, it's different than a Mass Effect or one of these giant sort of classics where storytelling is the game, games like Last of Us and stuff like that. Minecraft, you get to create that yourself, and you have a ton of tools to do it. And you can tell your own story, you can write your own narrative using some of these tools. One of the biggest ones is just your avatar. Like, you have tons of avatar customization in here, and you can go and create that look and feel to make your character look like you want in game. And then as you're walking around these servers and other people are seeing your avatar, you may get compliments, you may have people asking you where you got certain skins or what you did, and you can tell your own story in that way by customizing that avatar. I, of course, use just the slime avatar because I love these little guys. I think they are adorable, and when we first started our realm, we built our base in sort of one of these caves that spawned a lot of slimes, and so I've just kind of grown an affinity for these little guys that when I saw that skin, I chose it, and I've kept it ever since just because I love that. And one of the interesting things is you do still have game mechanics. You still have to put your armor over your skin, and so that can kind of disrupt your look, and you've got to make that choice like, hey, do I value my avatar over the gameplay mechanics of being able to protect myself with armor, which is an interesting choice as well. One of the other things I love, which is just a little thing that you don't always think of, but being able to name weapons and armor and all of these things, being able to go in, I've named my armor set around the Technicolor Dreamcoat just because I thought it was funny because they kind of glimmer. But naming weapons as well. Like, I love going in and naming my favorite pickaxe, my favorite sword. I love going in and just creating those custom names for those items, and it allows me to kind of tell another story if I wanted to. And I've kind of just chosen silly names for stuff like that, but you have the ability to give things names as you see fit. You do have little pieces of narrative that aren't necessarily explicit, but do tell a story. One of my favorites in that realm is the villagers. The idea is that you come across these villages as you're wandering the world, and you can interact with these villagers. You can trade with them, and if you invoke a raid and you win that raid, they shoot off fireworks for you, and they then let you trade at a discount for a certain amount of time. And that kind of splash that you get for the hero of the village, that buff where you're getting those discounted trades, is incredibly fun. It's a full screen splash that really makes you feel like you've accomplished something. And then those villagers are more friendly to you, and you kind of tell your own story in that way. And it's a rewarding moment that's kind of little. Like, I mean, you were the one that put them in danger by invoking this raid on them, but they still reward you for going in and completing this raid and getting rid of these illagers that are attacking them. They're sort of trying to pillage their village, and you've gone and saved them, and they celebrate that when that's all done. And now the storytelling and narrative for Minecraft goes beyond the base game. You have standalone games in Minecraft Dungeons and Minecraft Legends, which are complete standalone games that do focus a little more on the narrative, the storytelling. They have a little bit more of that to them than the base game, which is more of the sandbox. And of course, you now have the movie as well. Like we have movies, books, all of these kinds of things about this world that can start to fill in those details, even though it itself is a sandbox game and is devoid of traditional storytelling. There's a whole world out there for fan fiction and the movie and what is and isn't canon, which is an interesting story. I had a conversation with some friends about, they made a statement that the Minecraft movie is not canon per se, but in a sandbox game, what is canon? What isn't canon? Like, there's nothing to say that I can't go and recreate the movie itself in game, and that canon could or couldn't exist. We don't know, but you're starting to get all these external experiences where you're able to tell these stories and have this narrative outside of the actual game. Looking at a few other game psychology, game mechanic moments that don't necessarily fit into those broader chunks, I love the way that Minecraft handles bosses, raids, like that kind of stuff, that sort of boss moment. You have obviously the Ender Dragon that is kind of the main boss to this game, where you have to traverse these different areas. It's overworld, then maybe you get some stuff from the Nether, and then you can travel to the end and fight the Ender Dragon, and you're rewarded with the egg, which is this one of a kind. There's only one on the server necessarily that you can place and show as sort of this trophy that you've defeated the Ender Dragon, which is incredibly fun. It's kind of that fun moment. And you have the Wither as well. The Wither is this sort of boss that you can spawn yourself. Like, it's not even something that you have to go to a certain place to get to. Once you get the items to craft, you can turn this on yourself, and you've got to be careful where you do it. If you can do it in the Nether, you can do it in the overworld, but know that it can cause chaos wherever it happens. And by doing that, you get the Nether Star, which in turn can be used to create a beacon, which is probably one of the more powerful things in the game. And so these bosses have meaning, and what you do with them is different, and they all work a little different. I mean, Ender Dragon is obviously in a set location, the Wither you create, and then you have the Warden, which is super interesting in that the other two bosses have a loot drop, where if you beat them, you get a certain item. The Warden is probably harder than both of those two, and drops nothing. And it's more of this gameplay mechanic idea where the valuables are in that biome. The valuables are in the ancient city. You've got to traverse the ancient city to find the valuables, and the Warden is just the protector of that. And you've got to sneak past the Shriekers and that kind of stuff to get to the treasure. And you really don't want to even see the Warden, is really what it boils down to. So that's kind of an interesting mechanic compared to those other two bosses. So it's really interesting to see how they've changed the gameplay for different bosses, for different fights, yet kept it unique and kept it fresh. I mean, we've had the Ender Dragon since, I believe, the beginning, and then these other ones just kind of come with updates and create this new gameplay, as opposed to just creating another big fight like the Ender Dragon is. Repetition is key to games like this, and I think Minecraft does it incredibly well, especially in that early, the onboarding process. And that's really where it's important, because that repetition allows you to commit the basic controls, the basic ideas to memory, so that you can kind of remember, okay, I've got to break up blocks, and then I can go and craft with them. And more or less, that's the crux of Minecraft. I mean, that is its namesake, right? You mine for resources, and then you craft with said resources. And you're doing that right out of the gate. I mean, the first thing you kind of do is you go and find the wood and start breaking down wood even with your hands. You can craft tools, and then maybe those tools allow you to start digging up dirt a little bit more efficiently. And then you can start getting below the dirt into the stone. And then once you start gathering those resources, you can start making iron tools, and you can start taking that a little bit further. But that repetition is always there. It is always, I mine and then I craft, and then I mine and then I craft. And I mean, to its namesake, like, it does this incredibly well, where anyone that's played Minecraft, even for an hour, gets that idea. Like, it's really hard to lose track of the base idea of that repetitiveness of, like, hey, I'm gathering stuff and then I'm crafting stuff. And you do this over and over. You do it obviously first for your wood set of tools, and then that steps to stone, and then you're making metal tools, and kind of continuing that. And by the time you're getting to metal and iron, you've done this so many times, it's like second nature. You don't even need to think about what I need to do. It's built in. You don't ever have to recommit those controls to memory, or start to relearn crafting recipes or something like that. You really start to know them, and you don't even necessarily think twice about it. You also utilize layering a ton, which is another thing that both software, products, and games all need to utilize, especially in the onboarding process, where you start with something simple and then you add complexity once the user understands it. In Minecraft, it starts with, hey, I've got to combine wood to make a crafting table. Like, that's one of the first things you have to do. You can't start even creating tools without that crafting table. The crafting table is one of the few things you can make without a crafting table, which kind of makes sense. But after that, you kind of see, okay, I combine items and make a bigger item. And then you start to get this like, okay, well, now I can make tools. Now I can combine ores. And it gets more and more complex as you go, until you start to get to the really complex things, like making an enchantment table, or making a beacon like we talked about, or creating all these different things where you're gathering complex ingredients. And you can even you then are taking the ingredients you make, and you use things like the upgrade table to take, okay, well, I've crafted a diamond chest plate. Well, now I need to combine it with an armor trim and a copper ingot, which are all things you've crafted, and you combine those even further. And that layering comes into play more and more. If you look again, taking the Adobe example, like layering these features, like you can start with, in Illustrator, you may start just by using the pen and drawing basic shapes, and then you start to extrude those shapes, and you start to add points and move these things out, and you start to trace image, and you really can start to layer these features. You're starting with the basics, and you can get more and more complex. Like Photoshop is another example where, hey, maybe I just need to start with some basic color adjustments. Like this photo is an older photo, and I just want to color adjust it to where you can really get into like gradient adjustments, utilizing AI to get rid of people or items from an image. That layering comes into play yet again in software. And it's an important part of that onboarding process to make sure that you're not throwing your person off the high dive into that deep end of the pool. Landmarking is another one of my favorite game design features that you see in product design as well. That I have another video on landmarking using Breath of the Wild as the example. But landmarking is that idea where, hey, I've seen this before. I know I've been here before. And the thing that I love about it in Minecraft is there are natural structures that you can look at and go, hey, I've been here before. This is that ocean monument that I came across, or this is that abandoned mine shaft that I came across. I've seen these things before. I've seen this cavern opening, or I've seen this rock structure before. But in Minecraft, you can create your own. It becomes this fun little thing where it's like in our realm, all of the little hub and spoke bases that I've gone and created, I'll add this little flaming pitchfork too, so that from many, many blocks away, I can see, oh, well, there's one of the little bases over there, and I can start to acquaint myself with where I am, and I don't get lost, and it gives me that sense of place in the world, which is exactly what you want from landmarking. Like, especially in open world games like this, you need the ability to know where you are in space time, and landmarking is the best way to do that. Our human minds are great at recognizing things we've seen before, and so that landmarking can really help us do that. And you see it in products like e-commerce is famous for this. Like, you have your cart in the upper right, you have your logo in the upper left that if you click it, it'll take you back to the home page. Those are landmarks on a website, and it helps us stay oriented within the website itself. And you see it further and further as we continue product design, things like bottom and top navs in mobile applications. Exact same thing. Like, it allows us the ability to say, hey, I don't know where I've gone. I don't know what breadcrumb trail I've gone down here, but I just need to go back to the home page. That bottom nav or top nav can allow me to do that. Thank you for joining me and talking about this game that I've grown to love over the last, 5 years. Like I said, I got to it late, but I've spent so many hours in this game and so many fun memories with friends and family in this game. And comment below, tell me what you love about this game. We touched on it for a very brief moment here and talked about some of these mechanics, but there are huge things that we didn't discuss, and I want to hear from you what your favorite parts of this game are. Jump in the comments and let's talk about them. I try to respond to every comment I get, and I love talking about games like this that I love. So hop down in, and if you want to choose a game or a topic, you have the ability. If you want to kind of guide my content, you have the ability to donate to the Extra Life Foundation, which is made in part by the Children's Miracle Network. Specifically, I raise money for the Primary Children's Hospital here in Salt Lake City, Utah. But for a $25 donation, you can choose a game design topic or mechanic that I talk about. This could be trading or loot boxes or avatars, whatever you want. You choose the mechanic, and I'll give a breakdown on how it works, how you can implement it, why it's when it's good, when it's bad, all of that. For $50, you can choose a full game analysis. Just like you saw here, just like this Minecraft video, you can choose what game I will play and break down. It could be an old school classic that you wanna reimagine. It could be a new game. It could even be independent projects. If you want me to take a look at your independent project that you're building, I'm happy to for a donation, and you could get that potentially exposure or even just some design review and thoughts and feelings about that design. And for a $100 donation, not only do you get to choose the game, but I'll invite you on to talk about it with me. I want to hear your perspective firsthand. Join me on a call and let's talk about your favorite game before we dive into some of that mechanic breakdown. All of those donations go to the Children's Miracle Network, specifically Primary Children's Hospital here in Salt Lake City, Utah, like I mentioned. So be sure to check out that donation if you're interested in getting some. If you just enjoy viewing the content, I'm a huge proponent of the democratization of game design, of game theory, of game psychology. I don't intend to monetize any of this. I don't do classes and that kind of stuff where I ask for money for me other than those donations. So if you don't have the means to donate or don't want to choose a game and you just enjoy, please like, subscribe, comment, any of that stuff to spread this knowledge around. Again, the democratization of information is a thing that I hold dear, and I wish I had when I was a kid starting to learn game design. So thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to comment below about the things you love about Minecraft, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.